We've spoken on many occasions about how sprawling an area Ashford has become, and sometimes the way it's governed is kind of up for debate in terms of the fact that basically one area one actual council group covering the whole area and making decisions for the whole area sometimes doesn't always see the best of interests for some of the local residents. I'm joined in the studio now by Chris Morley from Kennington Community Forum. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Now, Kennington Community Forum is one of 4 forums in the local area?
That's right. The 4 forums which cover the urban area. So we've got Kennington, which is really everything north of the M20 and west of the Canterbury Railway line. So that's our area. There's a Central Ashford Community Forum. It's a forum which covers Willesborough, and the South Ashford Community Forum. So we're set up about 10 years ago, around about 2002, 2003, all at the same time. We've evolved down slightly different paths, but we're still representing our communities and the area as a whole.
So you're the chair of the forum. What do you see an ideal role for the forum?
Well, our first objective really is to find out what the residents of the area need and want. So very often we have issues brought to us of things which someone doesn't know where to go for advice and information. We can deal with that. We can put them in touch with bodies which might provide funding. For example, we can channel grants from KCC, from Ashford Borough Council, and other voluntary bodies. We can sort of hold those and route those through to the right area. And we take a role, I think the big tag is really social, economic and well-being of the whole area. So we're part of that conversation between the Borough Council and the residents. We are part of that channel.
Are you actually an official body, though, in terms of sort of Ashford?
Yes, we are. So the 4 forums are unique. We're different from sort of tenants' associations or community groups in that we are actually referenced in the Constitution of Ashford Borough Council. So we're formally set up and recognised by ABC. And if you check the Constitution, we are specifically referenced there, which is very good. That gives us a number of fairly informal rights. For example, we can now speak at various meetings. That's a fairly recent provision which Ashford Borough Council has granted us. So it's not statutory yet, but certainly we are formally recognised. And we're supported by a link officer from Ashford Borough Council. So Michelle Byrne has spent many hours working with us and helps us out and comes to our meetings and makes sure we're kept in order. So that's really handy.
I was just going to ask more about the concept of the community forums in general. How do they come about? Are they driven by the council mandating that they think there should be community forums, or are they groups of people who think they needed them and have come up organically? And also, how do the community forums differ? If you become a community council or a parish council, how does that differ from what's already provided by the council or offered by the council?
Okay, so the origins of the forums, way back to 1997 when there's some thinking in the government, and go back to 1974 when the borough councils were created. And bit by bit it was realised in the central government that in the town areas in particular, because most towns had gone from being an urban district council which looked after the town area only, and most of those functions had been taken over by a borough council which had town and maybe some other towns in the area and quite a wide brief. There's a democratic deficit in the urban population. So by the mid-90s this was coming to the problem of how do we address this? And the government puts a number of white papers and legislation through to enable a better democratic representation in the town areas. Ashford Borough Council took this on board, and there were already some moves in the Kennington area, and I think some of the other areas too, that we want a better voice. And Ashford Borough Council was very foresighted, and actually instigated the forums. So initially we had borough councillors, county councillors, some other sort of activists in the communities set up the groups themselves as a shadow body, and then went to an elected system for the next year's representation. So each year we have an AGM, the committee stands down, we go through a public election process to that. So that was the origin, and really we haven't changed significantly since then in terms of what we do, the areas we cover and the functions we have. But the step change that we want to do now is it can be quite hard as a volunteer to get action. We have to work very, very hard to get some apparently simple things sorted out. Whereas as a community council, we'd make that step change from being a powerful voluntary group into a group which had statutory authorities. Parish councils in the rural areas have been around since 1894. So the remit of what they can do, how they operate, whether they're good or bad, the funds they can raise through the parish precept, that's well known and trusted. We've had them for over 100 years. So we want to take advantage of that and also be able to raise funds by having a precept in the area. Now, a lot of people say, well, in the urban area, people wouldn't pay that. Well, actually, if you look in the semi-urban parishes around Ashford, it's a fairly low amount. So some parish councils are charging £14-15 a year on top of the rates on a Band D house. If your house is lower banded, of course, you pay less than that.
Yeah.
So it's not a great amount of money. And the benefit is it brings cash into the community, which you can then invest. So these long-awaited projects of, why can't I have an extra swing in the child's playground? At the moment, in the urban area, it's quite difficult to get that done. If you have a community council, you stand more chance of putting some cash into it.
And I guess hopefully if you prove yourself with that cash, they might release more cash for other projects from a sort of central repository.
I think it's a trust relationship. So, in the early days of a community council, you wouldn't want to run and do absolutely everything that you could. You can do some amazing things. Community council has the rights to establish a clock. Well, that's really not what we're about at the moment. So I think it's building that trust and that relationship over a period of time and demonstrating you can deliver. And you're not just a talking shop. You can actually manage funds correctly. You can keep costs low. You can plan accurately. So all of those areas, I think you build that over time. You don't do it all at day one.
One other question, sorry. Is the whole of Ashford currently covered by community forums one way or the other? If anyone listening today is thinking, that's a really good idea, I wish there was one in my area, is it likely that there is one in their area and they need to find out about it? Or should they be thinking, maybe I need to start one?
The whole of the urban area is covered, so this is all the non-parished part of Ashford.
Okay.
So the 4 forums are Kennington Forum, Central Ashford Forum, Willesborough Forum and South Ashford Community Forum. So we collaborate quite well. We meet periodically to swap ideas and evolve strategies for what we want to do. But there's a forum for every part of urban Ashford, and we can be happy to put people in touch if they want to join in.
Well, we'll put a list on the website as well so that people can find the one nearest them and get involved.
Yeah. You obviously want more for the community of Kennington as a whole. And people will come to you for genuine things such as increased street lighting.
Yes.
Cycle paths, bus shelters, that kind of thing. Is that something that you can actually have a say in getting something in that area with the council?
So as we stand at the moment, we're a voluntary organisation, so we do have quite a loud voice, and we work with, for example, Kent Highways. We've just been doing some work on some road safety improvements in the area as a voluntary group. But where we want to move next, and we're doing this with other forums in the area, is to move from being a voluntary group as a forum and become a community council. So this is something that we've been working on for 5-6 months now with Kent Association of Local Councils, and we obtained some grant funding from central government to help us do this. But we think we are mature enough now, we're solid enough, that it's time to move on from the voluntary group to being a statutory community council with more formal elections, more rights, more responsibilities.
Legal wise as well, is it?
That's right. So we would be equivalent to a parish council.
Right.
Most people seem to think of parish councils as being predominantly in rural areas. But there's no reason why you can't have a body of the same basis in urban areas. Just that you can call them a parish or community council or a neighbourhood council, depending on what you see being relevant to that area.
So can you not just change your status from being the community forum to being a community council Can you not just say we don't want to do this anymore? We want to be this.
No, there's quite a complex process to go through. So the steps we're taking at the moment. The first piece we need to do is to have a petition from residents of the area.
Right.
And this is a formal petition, and we require 10% of the electorate of the Kennington area. So by Kennington, that actually covers Kennington, Bockhanger, Bybrook, Little Burton, and a small part of Bourton Aleph.
Right.
When we get to our target 10%, which is about 1,000 residents on our petition, then Ashford Borough Council will trigger what's called a community governance review.
Right.
So this is a very formal piece of work, which they should do periodically anyway, but it helps to have some evidence from the community that this is what they want to do. The community governance review would then come back with more consultation with ourselves and other groups in the area. There might well be residents' associations or other groups roundabout who have a different view of where they see their neighbourhood is constituted. Do they think of themselves as being part of Kennington or North Ashford, or parts of Little Burton might have a view as to how they see their community, depending on where they work and where they live and how they shop and where their children go to school and so on. The community governance review would take all those on board, and they would make recommendations for whether we should have a community council, perhaps more than one community council. We could have a community council with wards in it, so you get a balance between different areas, particularly if you're a larger area. There's a risk that all the representatives might come from one street, and that wouldn't work.
So you could split say Kennington, if Kennington were to get it, you'd split it into the Kennington, the Bybrook, the Bockhanger, the Little Burton.
That's a possibility, but the
lines.
suggestions would come from Ashford Borough Council, depending on their conversations and what they think is sustainable, what would work.
So how are you going to get those 1,000 signatures then?
Well, the good news is that every house in the Forum area has received by now a petition to the door and a leaflet, which is an exhortation, do you want better services?
Right.
So we're not promising the earth, but it is an example of the sort of services that a community council could aim to provide.
Kennington News comes out on a fairly regular basis. It's quarterly, isn't it?
That's right. We publish 4 times a year,
Right.
and we cover all the news there is fit to print in the area
Right.
and more. This is again, we've got some excellent editorial on there, excellent contributors, and we try to have a balance between sort of topical issues and there's some more formal communication issues in there.
Yeah.
So we're just about to go to press with the next edition now, and it should be distributed by the 1st of March. We aim to have that out.
And that goes out to all 5,000 homes in the actual district then?
That's right. So we've got a team of volunteers who might just do a few houses or a whole street, and we're always keen to hear from residents who would be happy to help us with that delivery.
Excellent. And also to join the forum on the whole, I'm guessing.
And that's right. So the forum is run by a committee which we call the core group. We run up to a maximum of 12 people on the committee, and people come and go. What we find is people join the committee and then they get roped in for other committees on the back of that. So we're always keen for volunteers. Anyone who's interested, come to a couple of our meetings. We're quite warm and friendly, and then you can see if that's what you want to do. And then you're very welcome to put yourself forward to be co-opted, and perhaps you've got a project or something that you think should be done in your own local area. Yeah. We'd be very happy to hear from people who want to reverse a project into the forum.
Is there an example of that that's going on at the moment where people have got involved?
Well, that will happen to me.
Right. Thanks, Chris. And for more information on this as a whole, go to www.kenningtoncf.kentparishes.gov.uk or www.ashfordcommunity.co.uk.